The morning bell echoed through the halls of Lincoln High School, the sound bouncing off faded lockers and peeling posters that told the same message every student had long stopped reading. Respect, responsibility, integrity. But respect was the last thing anyone saw in those halls that Monday morning. The students moved like waves of noise, laughter, chatter, sneakers squeaking on linoleum floors. At the center of it all stood room 3B, the senior English classroom, home to Mr. Davidson for almost 15 years. Only this morning, Mr. Davidson wasn't there. Instead, standing at the front, adjusting her papers nervously, was someone new. Her name was Miss Jordan Fields, 28 years old, with calm eyes and a quiet confidence that came from surviving more than most people ever would. She'd recently moved from Atlanta to this small suburban town after her mother's passing, looking for a fresh start. Her skin was smooth and dark, her voice soft but firm, and when she smiled, there was warmth, the kind that could disarm anyone who wasn't determined to hate. She was the kind of teacher who could have inspired greatness, but Lincoln High wasn't ready for her. As she placed her coffee mug on the desk, she could feel the stares before she even looked up. Half the class was already whispering, "Yo, you see the new teacher?" A boy in the back said, leaning to his friend. "She's black, bro. Ain't seen that before here." His friend snorted. "Bet she won't last a week." Miss Jordan heard it. She pretended she didn't. Years of teaching in rough schools had trained her well. Control your face, control your tone, and never show that it hurts. She opened her attendance sheet. "Good morning, everyone," she said, her voice calm and clear. "I'm Miss Fields. I'll be your English teacher from today onward. Mr. Davidson has retired, so we'll be continuing where he left off." No one replied, just a few muffled laughs. She tried again. "Why don't we start by introducing ourselves? Tell me your name and one thing you like. Could be music, sports, anything." A girl near the front rolled her eyes. "Seriously? We did that in kindergarten." The class laughed. Miss Jordan smiled politely. "Then it should be easy for you, right?" The girl, Brittany, folded her arms, smirking. "Brittany, I like not doing stupid introductions." "Thank you, Brittany," Miss Jordan said smoothly, marking her name. "Anyone else?" There was silence. Then a chair screeched as a tall boy stood up. His name was Kyle Harris, the kind of student everyone knew, captain of the basketball team, loud, charming, and cruel when he wanted to be. He stepped forward, grin spreading across his face like a challenge. "Kyle Harris," he said, "and I like teachers who know their place." A few students laughed. Others went quiet, glancing nervously at Miss Jordan. She paused for a moment, her pen hovering. Then she looked up at him. "Well, Kyle," she said evenly, "in this class, we're all going to learn our place, right behind our desks, focused and respectful." The class went silent for a moment. Kyle tilted his head. "You think you're tough?" She didn't reply, just smiled faintly. "I think we'll find out who's tough when report cards come out." The room broke into nervous laughter, even a few claps. For the first time, Miss Jordan felt a flicker of confidence. Maybe she could handle this place after all, but she didn't know what was coming. By lunch, rumors had already spread that the new teacher was strict, bossy, thought she was better than everyone. Kyle and Brittany led the whisper campaign, turning curiosity into mockery. By the next morning, someone had already drawn a crude picture on her classroom whiteboard, her face with exaggerated features and the words, "Miss Fields' slave." When she saw it, her stomach dropped. The room was empty, just her and the echo of that word. She stood there, marker in hand, heart pounding, then quietly wiped it away. She told herself it didn't matter. She'd dealt with worse. But deep down, something cracked. That day, the class was more restless than before. Every time she turned to write on the board, someone whispered, laughed, or tossed paper balls behind her back. She kept her composure, but her hands trembled slightly when she spoke. Then came Wednesday, the day everything changed. The morning air was heavy with rain. Gray clouds loomed outside the window as thunder rumbled in the distance. Miss Jordan was writing a quote on the board, one of her favorites from Maya Angelou. Still, I rise. Her handwriting was neat, her voice steady as she read it aloud. What do you think this means? She asked the class. Still I rise, even when people try to hold me down. Kyle leaned back in his chair, grinning. Sounds like victim talk, Miss Jordan turned. You think so? Yeah, he said. People always crying about being treated bad. Just deal with it, a few students murmured in agreement. Miss Jordan nodded slowly. Interesting point. But sometimes standing tall isn't about crying. It's about refusing to let hate define you. Kyle smirked. Whatever. You talk too much. The tension in the room thickened. Miss Jordan felt it like a storm building behind her ribs. She took a slow breath and moved on with the lesson. But Kyle wasn't done. When she turned again to write, he flicked an eraser piece that hit her shoulder. She froze, then slowly looked over her shoulder. The class was silent, waiting. Kyle, she said softly. Did you throw that? He leaned back, arms crossed. What if I did? Then you'll stay after class, she said, trying to stay calm. He laughed. Nah, I got practice. Miss Jordan's patience started to thin. Then I'll speak to Coach Miller. Kyle's grin faded a little. You serious right now? She nodded. Very. The bell rang, breaking the tension, and students began to stand up. Kyle brushed past her desk on the way out, whispering, You'll regret that. She didn't respond, but her stomach turned cold. The next day, the retaliation began. Someone had stuffed gum under her desk drawer, ruined her attendance sheet, and scribbled on the chalkboard before she entered. Go back to where you came from. Miss Jordan stood still for a long moment. Her throat tight, eyes glistening with disbelief. She wasn't angry, not yet. She was just tired of starting over. Tired of being tested for simply existing. She quietly erased the words again, then faced the class. Let's begin, she said softly. The class barely listened that day. Kyle whispered jokes the whole time. Brittany laughed loudly whenever Miss Jordan turned her back. Even the quiet students stayed silent, afraid to stand up for her. It felt like the whole world had turned into one long whisper of cruelty. By the last period, her heart felt heavy. She sat at her desk, rubbing her temples, while rain tapped the window in slow rhythm. The janitor, an older man named Mr. Cole, peeked in. You all right, ma'am? She forced a smile. Just a long week, he nodded. Kids can be mean, but don't let them change you. You got this, she nodded. His kindness a small light in the dark. But fate wasn't done testing her yet. Friday morning, a pep rally day. Loud music, students in jerseys, halls echoing with laughter. The whole school felt like chaos. Miss Jordan hoped the noise might distract her class from their usual cruelty. She was wrong. The first few minutes went okay. Reading poetry, small discussion. Then Kyle whispered something to Brittany, who smirked and nodded. Miss Jordan tried to ignore it, but when she turned to write again, she heard a sudden rip. She froze. The class went quiet. She turned slowly and saw Kyle holding a piece of fabric in his hand. Her sleeve had torn, her blouse ripped open from the shoulder. A sharp gasp cut through the room. For a moment, no one breathed. Miss Jordan's face flushed red, her eyes wide with shock and humiliation. The tear wasn't huge, but it exposed enough, her skin visible, her dignity shattered in front of 30 silent faces. Kyle laughed. Relax, it was just a joke. Her heart pounded. Her lips trembled, but she held her voice steady. You tore my shirt, Kyle shrugged. Didn't mean to. Don't be dramatic. A few students snickered. Someone whispered, She's gonna cry. Miss Jordan turned toward her desk, her hands shaking, her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Everyone, sit down, she said quietly. But there was something in her tone that froze the room. Kyle raised an eyebrow. What you gonna do? She turned slowly, her face unreadable. Sit down, she repeated. This time lower, colder. The room fell dead silent. Kyle hesitated, his smirk fading for the first time, but he didn't move. You think you scare me? He said finally. Miss Jordan stepped forward, calm, steady, terrifyingly controlled. Her voice was soft but sharp as a blade. "Kyle, I've dealt with people a lot tougher than you. Don't test me." For the first time, the student saw something in her eyes. Not fear, not anger, but power. Kyle opened his mouth to reply, but before he could, the classroom door swung open. Principal Sanders stood there looking confused. "Everything all right in here?" Miss Jordan froze. She could have told him everything. She could have reported the bullying, the harassment, the humiliation, but she looked at her class, at their blank faces, and realized no one would stand by her. She took a slow breath. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "Everything's fine." The principal nodded and left. As soon as the door closed, Kyle laughed. "You really ain't gonna say nothing? You're weak." The bell rang. Students rushed out, whispering, laughing. Miss Jordan sat down slowly, staring at the torn fabric on her shoulder. The rain outside had stopped, but inside her, a storm was just beginning. She picked up her phone, opened her photos, and stared at a picture of her mother, smiling in a white karate gi. Her mother had been a judo instructor for 20 years, taught her discipline, taught her balance, taught her to fight only when it was true. The weekend came like a slow storm. Miss Jordan stayed inside her small apartment, blinds half closed, rain whispering against the window. The torn blouse lay folded on her table, a painful reminder of everything that had happened. She hadn't told anyone. Not the principal. Not her colleagues. Not even her sister, who kept calling and asking, "How's the new job going?" Each time she replied, "It's fine," but it wasn't. She replayed the scene over and over in her head, the laughter, the ripping sound, the look on Kyle's face when he said, "Relax." It was just a joke. It wasn't a joke. It was cruelty disguised as play, and she had done nothing. That was what hurt most. She sat down at her kitchen table, staring at the picture of her late mother, the woman who had taught her that silence sometimes isn't peace. It's surrender. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. In judo, you don't attack first, but when someone crosses the line, when they take your peace, you defend it with everything you have. Miss Jordan closed her eyes, exhaled deeply, and whispered, "Maybe it's time to teach them what respect really means." Monday morning. The sky was bright, the halls loud as ever. But something in Miss Jordan had changed. Her walk was steady, her face calm. The whispers still followed her. "That's her. The one Kyle messed with." But she didn't flinch. She entered room 3B and placed her bag on the desk. The students were already talking, laughing, joking. Kyle sat at the back, feet on the desk, chewing gum, acting like the king of the world. Miss Jordan didn't say a word. She simply picked up a marker, turned to the board, and wrote in large, "Confident letters. Respect isn't given. It's earned." The class went quiet for a second, confused by the sudden change in her energy. Then Kyle smirked. "What's this, a TED Talk?" Miss Jordan turned slowly, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. "Something like that," she said. "Today we're doing something different." She looked around. "Everyone clear your desks." The students hesitated, exchanging looks. Kyle chuckled. "What's this? Another kindergarten game?" Miss Jordan ignored him. "I want you all to come to the front." Some stood reluctantly. Others watched in curiosity. When everyone had gathered near the front, she moved her desk aside, creating space in the middle of the classroom. "Today," she said softly, "we're going to learn about control, emotional control. You've been reading poetry all week, but words mean nothing if you don't understand what strength really is." The students looked uneasy. Kyle leaned against a desk. "You trying to be some kind of life coach now?" Miss Jordan didn't answer. Instead, she took off her blazer, revealing the simple black training shirt underneath. Her posture shifted, straight, centered, balanced. That was the first moment they realized something about her was different. She began to speak, her tone calm and low. When people hurt you, your first instinct is to react, yell, fight, break something. But power isn't in reacting. It's in knowing when to move. She stepped closer to Kyle, stopping just a few feet away. Last week, she said, you crossed a line. You humiliated someone, not because they hurt you, but because you thought you could. Kyle blinked, his grin faltering. You still mad about that? I told you, it was a joke. She looked at him steadily. Do you know what happens when jokes cross into cruelty? He shrugged. People toughen up. Miss Jordan nodded slowly. You're right. They do. Then she did something no one expected. She placed a foam floor mat, one used in self-defense classes, right in the middle of the room. I used to teach judo, she said quietly. Before I became a teacher. The class gasped softly. Kyle laughed nervously. Yeah, right. Miss Jordan turned toward him. Come here. What? Come here, she repeated, her tone patient but firm. The class fell silent. Even Brittany whispered, Don't do it, Kyle. But Kyle, never one to back down, shrugged and walked forward. All right, fine. What are you gonna do? Teach me manners? Miss Jordan nodded once. Exactly. She stood opposite him, feet apart, body relaxed. This isn't a fight, she said. It's a demonstration of consequence. Kyle rolled his shoulders. Whatever you say. He stepped closer, mockingly raising his hands like a boxer. The class giggled. Then, in a blink, he reached out, pretending to grab her arm, and that's when it happened. In one fluid motion, Miss Jordan turned her body, caught his wrist, shifted her hip, and flipped him clean over her shoulder. A loud thud echoed through the classroom. Kyle landed flat on the mat, stunned. Breath knocked out of him. The class gasped. Some screamed. Miss Jordan didn't move. She stood over him, calm as ever. Her voice was steady. Lesson 1. Never put your hands on someone without consent. Kyle blinked, breathless. What was that? Judo, she said simply. It means the gentle way. But make no mistake, it's not weak. The room was dead silent. She helped him up, gently, not mocking. You okay? He nodded, still dazed. Good, she said. Then we can continue. What followed wasn't violence. It was revelation. Miss Jordan didn't humiliate him. She turned that moment into a powerful teaching session. She explained how every motion in judo is about balance, not revenge, about using an aggressor's energy against them. You used force, she told the class. I used control. That's the difference between being powerful and being dangerous. No one laughed now, even. Brittany looked ashamed. Miss Jordan continued calmly. You thought I wouldn't fight back because I'm quiet, because I'm different, because I don't shout or threaten. But strength doesn't need noise. Real strength is calm. Kyle looked down, his face red. Not from pain, but from realization. For the first time, he didn't have a comeback. After class, most students left in silence, but Kyle stayed behind. He stood awkwardly by the desk, staring at the floor. Miss Fields, I didn't mean... She looked up. I know you didn't think about it. That's the problem. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. Apology accepted. But make sure your actions change, too. He nodded quickly. They will. I promise. As he turned to leave, she said, Kyle. He stopped. Next time you see someone getting treated the way you treated me, don't laugh. Do something, he nodded again, eyes wet, and walked out. By the end of the week, word had spread through the entire school. Students weren't talking about the new black teacher anymore. They were talking about the teacher who threw the captain of the basketball team across the room and then forgave him. Something changed after that. The graffiti stopped. The whispers died down. Even Brittany started showing up early to class, volunteering to help. Principal Sanders called her into his office one afternoon. I've been hearing things, he said, half smiling. Apparently you're teaching self-defense now? Miss Jordan laughed softly. Just self-respect, he nodded. Whatever it is, it's working. The students respect you. I don't know what you did, but thank you, she smiled. Sometimes the best lessons aren't from the textbook. A few days later, Kyle came to her after class with a small, folded note. He handed it to her silently and left before she could open it. Inside, written in messy handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Miss Jordan sat quietly for a moment, the note trembling in her hand. Tears filled her eyes, not of pain this time, but of peace. She looked out the window where the afternoon sun poured golden light into the room. For the first time in weeks, she smiled freely. She realized that justice didn't always mean punishment. Sometimes, justice was the moment a cruel heart learned empathy. That Friday, she ended class with a simple message. "Before we go," she said, "I want you all to remember something." She wrote on the board again. "Still, I rise." "This isn't just a poem," she told them. "It's a promise. No matter what people say, no matter how hard they try to break you, you rise. You keep your grace. You keep your power. Because dignity can't be taken. It can only be given away. And we're done giving it away." The class clapped softly. Some smiled, some lowered their eyes in quiet respect. As they left, one by one, Miss Jordan felt something new in the air. Silence. Not from fear, but from understanding. Later that evening, when she walked to her car, she saw someone had left a small card on her windshield. It said, in neat handwriting, "You made us all stronger." Miss Jordan looked up at the sky, her eyes shining. She whispered softly to her mother's memory, "I did it, Mom." Then she got in her car, started the engine, and drove home, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The sun dipped low behind the school, painting the world in gold, and in that fading light, the echoes of laughter, cruelty, and pain faded too, replaced by something far stronger: respect, redemption, and the quiet power of rising again. Moral of the story: true strength isn't about revenge. It's about self-control, dignity and courage, the power to rise above hate and teach the world what respect truly means.